Hi, we're going to spend a few minutes just looking at an introduction to HTML. So HTML is hypertext markup language, and it is the language behind web pages. So when you go to a website, like I have our class site up here for basic web design, and you see what this looks like in a browser, but actually HTML is the code that is behind the scenes. The browser's job is to interpret that code and then display it. So you can go to any page on the web and right click on it and come down here and find View Page Source, and there's the HTML. Okay, now this one, this is a WordPress document, so there's a lot going on here, but let me scroll down just a little bit. And let's see, here we go. This is looking more like some of the first things that you will see in HTML. Okay, so kind of goes on and on. But that's the HTML code that's behind the scenes. Now let's back up. Let's start simpler than that. I've got some slides that we're using for this, and so you're welcome to download a copy of these if you would like. So first thing I want to look at is that HTML is built up of tags. Okay, so there's an opening tag and a closing tag, and those wrap around part of the code right there. Okay, so in this case, what I have on the screen right here is I have a P tag. You can see the opening tag right there. It's sitting between a less than and a greater than sign. I'll often refer to them as brackets. And then the closing tag is very similar, but it has a slash in it. So it's less than slash P and then the greater than sign. Okay, so that's how you distinguish between the open tag and the close tag. And what these indicate to us is that everything between those two tags is a paragraph. Okay, so P is for paragraph. Very simple tag there. And so a lot of our text on the page is paragraphs. And so they'll be wrapped in P tags. Each paragraph having its own set. So you can have, this has 5 words in it, so it's a very short paragraph, but it could be followed by another paragraph, and then visually there'd be some spacing between them. Okay, so some things like that that you're accustomed to seeing. Now, we refer to HTML elements. An HTML element is the open and the close tag and whatever content goes in it. So in this case, I have a paragraph. A very short sentence, has 2 words in it. That is an HTML element. Then I can start to put them together. Okay, so here this is the simplest of web pages here, but you can see that I have a title up here. I've got a paragraph down here. Okay, so those are the obvious ones. You can see the open tag and the close tag. So there's my title right there. I've got a paragraph going on down here. Okay, so those are elements right there. But next I want to point out to you that HTML tags nest within each other. So let's start looking at some of the other tags. For instance, I have an HTML tag right here. An HTML tag wraps around an entire HTML document. In other words, everything between the open HTML tag and the closed HTML tag is the HTML document. The only exception being that I have a Doctype that goes in front of it. And we'll look at that one in a moment. So here's my open tag right here. Here's my close tag down here. Everything within that is the document. There we go. I'll look at that slide. So you can see there are my HTML tags right there. They're wrapped around everything else. The next piece is I have a head section, and that comes first within my HTML document. The head section contains information about the page. Okay, so you see I have my open head tag, my close head tag there. Okay, so they have to wrap around. At the moment, the only thing I have within it is a title. We'll definitely be getting more information into that later. If you recall, the title it doesn't actually display on the page. It's information about the page. So if you're looking at this page in a browser, up above the web address or the URL, a lot of times there's text right there, and it varies from browser to browser, but that would be the page title. Now, mine says page title. That is not descriptive. It really needs to be descriptive of your page. So it could be a company name, it could be a product name, things like that. This is a very important tag as far as search engines go. They give a lot of weight to what you say on your page title. Okay, so notice my title, I have my open tag, the content of it, and my close tag there. Those all reside within the head section. So that's that nesting I'm referring to. Okay, the tags can't cross each other. In other words, I can't open a head tag, open a title tag, and then close the head tag, and then close the title tag. Okay, things have to be contained within each other. So my full title goes here, all of that within my head section like that. Okay, so that's the head section. Following that, I have a body section, has a body tag, so you see the open and the close of the body tag, and all the content that displays on my page goes within the body section. So in this case, I'm showing you a paragraph, okay, so you can see the open P tag through the closed P tag, and then I just said the content continues here. We'll look at some more in a moment. But everything that displays is going to be put in that section right there. Okay, so hopefully you're starting to get a feel for how the tags work, how they nest within each other as well. Okay, here, this one is a little bit more accurate. I've given you a Doctype at the top, so you see Doctype right there at the top. My HTML tag actually has a little more information on it. Okay, so see it has a reference there to w3.org. They are the group that manages HTML as a language. Okay, the Doctype, the purpose of the Doctype up at the top, the reason it comes first. The Doctype tells the browser what version of HTML you are running. So as time goes by, they have been releasing updates to HTML. So in this case, I've highlighted it, you'll see that this one is running XHTML 1.0 transitional. Okay, so that is a version of HTML. And the reason it tells it that is so that the browser knows what rules to use to interpret the HTML and therefore how to display it. Okay, because every change with HTML, there's some changes with how the code works, little differences in the code, so forth. So that's the purpose of the Doctype, to tell the browser what the version is and how to interpret the code. If you don't put a Doctype on a file, it throws the browser into what is called quirks mode. And that just means that the browser does the best it can. It usually does a pretty good job, but some things are going to be not quite right, okay, because it doesn't know the version of what you're working on. Okay, this slide this is actually a screenshot from a document. Okay, very simple document, but you can start to see how the code looks. This one has colors in place, so the Doctype is in red. You notice that my tags are in blue. And that just helps us to see what we're working on. Actually, I also want to point out the fact that we have the nesting going on. In other words, here's my head tag, there's my close head tag, which is the title nested in it. You see that the title is indented right here. The indent is not necessary, okay? That really is for us, so that we can read it better, okay? Down here I have the body tag open and it closes down here. Then it's all indented, so H1, H2, P, OL, and then the OL closes down here and it has LIs in it, so they've been indented one more. Okay, so that's just to make this more readable, help you understand what's going on with the code. You can actually have HTML code running in one continuous line, so that like the head is here and the title would continue after it and then close the head tag after it and just keep going. It's not legible though, so you'll often find it sitting like this. So this is a good example, very simple page. You see that we have our title up at the top. It says our first web page. Then we get down into the body section. H1 and H2, these are headings. Okay, so you can kind of think of them as headlines. Okay, what you would commonly think of as being a headline, but these are weighted. In other words, the H1 is more important than the H2, or the H2 would be a point that you're making falling under the H1. Okay, then I have a paragraph of information below that. The OLs are an ordered list ordered being numbered, okay, with two LIs, those being the two list items, LI for list item. There's our first numbered item, our second numbered item, okay? So that's how we create a list. I have another paragraph after that. We can follow with a bullet list. And then, yes, I have a bullet list below. The bullet list is a UL tag, an unordered list. So you see where the UL tag is here, and then it closes down here, and then it has two LIs in it, or two list items, a bullet item 1 and a bullet item 2. And I will point out to you that while we have an OL, an ordered list, and a UL, unordered list, the contents of them are all LIs, okay? So list items are the elements that fall in lists. So it's the wrapping tag, OL or UL, that determines what it looks like, whether they're numbers or bullets, okay? So hopefully you're starting to get a feel for that. Let me see. Oh, let's not go there yet. First I want to flip over to, I've got a browser up here, and this is that page that we were just looking at, okay? So you could go back and look at the tags if you would like, but remember, everything within the body tag displays. So the first thing in our body tag was the H1. So there's my heading 1 right there. I followed that by heading 2. Then I had a paragraph. Below that I had an ordered list. Of course, the OL tag doesn't show up. That just wraps the list items and tells it what to do. But I had two list items in there, and they're numbered 1 and 2 because it's an ordered list. I had another paragraph below that, and then followed by an unordered list. Again, the UL does not show up, but it tells the LIs, the list items, what to look like, in this case having bullets. Okay, so you might want to flip back and forth between these two. I can go back and forth. So there's the code that you can see, and there is the preview of it as well. Both of these files, the slides, this is a PDF file, and this first page, which is an HTML document, are supplied on this week's page, so you can pull them up. For that matter, you might want to pull the HTML file up, and as you start to play in Dreamweaver, open it in Dreamweaver, and you can have the preview and the code sitting side by side and see how those compare to each other. Okay, just a little bit further. Really a summary here. HTML tags, so the things that we have talked about so far. First, I have some structural ones, so my HTML tag. This wraps around the entire HTML document. Only the Doctype comes before it. I have the head section, which comes first. That contains info about the page, and then followed by the body section, and that has all the content that is displayed on the page. Then we talked about some of the common tags here. So H1, we looked at an H1 and an H2. Those are both headings. There are actually 6 heading tags: H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, and H6. Okay, so you have 6 different options there. There is no H7. We can't make one up, so they just go H1 to H6. Then we have the P tag for paragraph. We have OL for the ordered list, UL for the unordered list, and then the LIs, the list items that go into either of those lists. 2 tags that we did not see in our file, but we will get to very soon, I just want to point out to you. We have an A tag, and that is a link. So anytime you're on a page and you see a link, we all know what to do with links. We put our mouse over it, we can click on it, it takes us to another page. That's a link. So that is an A tag, so it's not an L, but A stands for anchor, okay, if that helps you out. And then the last one, IMG, is an image tag. So when you have images on the page, you will find an image tag, IMG. Okay, last point I want to show you here. The heading tags, as you saw on our display, actually let's flip back over here. My H1 is large, my H2 is a little smaller. I'm not showing the other headings, but then I get into a paragraph. And so my paragraph and my lists are all using a common text size here. but you probably noticed that the H1 is largest, H2 is smaller. Okay, so headings they usually have styling applied to them, and that helps us see the importance, okay? Shows us the structure of our page. But more importantly, they also indicate the structure of the page's content. And this is especially important for screen readers and search engines, okay? So first let's show what it's doing. So I would start with an H1, okay? And the H1 is the most important thing on my page. Usually that's my page title. What is the subject of my page? Then I look at the structure of the content on my page. And so if I have two main points that fall under the H1, then I would use two H2s. Okay, so those would be my two main points. This H2 or this point might just have a couple paragraphs of content supporting it. But this second H2, maybe it has a couple points under it. So see how this H2 has two H3s. So these would be subpoints underneath the H2. Each of these I've given a paragraph of support content under it. Okay, so that's how that structure is working. I mentioned that it's important for screen readers and search engines. So we'll kind of touch on these two topics as the semester goes on. We'll talk a lot about browsers, but for those who are sight impaired, they can't actually see a web page in a browser, they use screen readers. And screen readers actually go through that HTML code and they know how to make sense of that code. In other words, when they get to an H1, they don't read the H1 tag, they just read the content of it. Okay, so they understand that content. But by properly utilizing your tags, they can determine the structure of your page. In a similar way, for search engines, they're very important because they show the structure of the page and therefore importance of content. Okay, so search engines, we want search engines to like us so that we show up in the rankings, and therefore we need to approach things properly to give them the information they need. So H1, that's the most important thing. Then I can show structure of my content by utilizing H2s, maybe some H3s under that. Okay, so I show my structure that way. Content that you find in a heading carries more weight on your page. In other words, shows more importance than like a paragraph does. Okay, so that's our brief introduction to HTML as a language. We will definitely be spending a ton of time on this as the semester goes on. I will keep building upon this, but you may find later you need to jump back here for a moment and just kind of refresh. So these are our basics.